You go back to the slides, you rewrite the pitch, you change the hook, and you run the webinar again, but your revenue doesn't move at all, and it's because the problem was never the webinar presentation. You have no pre-webinar system warming up your audience before they ever see a slide, and you don't have a post-webinar system capturing the 48 to 72 hours of peak buying intent after the webinar. The coaches doing consistent revenue with webinars aren't running a better presentation than you. They built an entire conversion system around the presentation. If your webinar isn't converting the way that it should, keep watching, because in this video, I'm going to walk through the exact pre-webinar and post-webinar systems that coaching and info businesses are using to scale past 250K per month with webinars. Now let's talk about why the presentation gets all of the attention. And the reason for that is very simple. It's because it's the only visible part of the funnel. You can see it, you can edit, you can change something and feel like you did something. The registration page, the email sequences, the retargeting, none of that is visible when you're staring at your screen wondering what to fix next. So you fix what you can see, but here's the problem with that. The presentation can only convert whoever shows up already warmed up and ready to buy. If the pre-webinar system isn't working, fewer people will attend live, and those who do attend, fewer are ready to pull the trigger because there's nothing in place to nurture them before they arrive to the webinar presentation. Now let's talk about the pre-webinar system and what's inside of it. There are 4 essential components in a properly built pre-webinar system. Most coaches have 1 or 2 of these, or sometimes even none of them, and almost nobody has all 4 of these built correctly. And component number 1 is the registration page. The headline leads with the exact outcome your prospect is trying to achieve, not what the webinar is about, but what they'll be able to do, have, or avoid after attending the webinar. This distinction is what separates a 20% opt-in rate and a 50% opt-in rate with the same traffic. The sub-headline handles the biggest objection that would stop them from registering. Usually it's some version of "I've seen this before" or "I don't have time." You address that directly in one sentence right below the headline, and the bullet points on the registration page do not describe what you're going to cover on the webinar. Instead, they describe the specific beliefs your audience needs in order to buy your offer. Component number 2 is the indoctrination video. After they register, they land on a confirmation page, and this is one of the highest intent moments in the entire funnel. Their attention is fully on you right now, and what belongs on this page is an indoctrination video. It's a 5 to 10 minute video structured into 3 parts. The first 60 seconds reinforce their decision to register. You're making them feel like they made the right move by opting in, and the next 4 to 8 minutes you install one belief. One specific belief they need to hold in order to say yes to your offer. The final 60 seconds create anticipation for the live event. Not a preview of the slides or what you're going to talk about in the webinar. It's a specific teaser of the thing they cannot figure out unless they show up live to the webinar. The coaches who run this video report higher show-up rates and higher closing rates, not because the presentation got better in any way, but because the audience arrived already believing something they didn't believe before they registered. Component number 3 is a belief shifting sequence. Between the registration and the live webinar, you need a sequence running in the background that actively sells before you go live. Not just reminder emails, you need a sequence designed to move the person towards a yes before they ever see a single slide. Usually this is 3 to 5 emails. Each one handles a specific limiting belief that your audience holds that blocks them from buying anything. Email number 1 addresses the approach objection. They've tried something before and it didn't work, and they're still carrying that with them. This email reframes why that happened and why this is different. Specific logic, not just reassurance. You want to make it, seem like that this solution or that your program or that your offer is different than anything they've tried before. And the reason why it didn't work for them is because the system or the method they were using was incorrect. Email number 2 is identity reframe. Most people don't buy because on some level they feel like the problem is them or something that they're doing wrong. And this email shifts that. The problem is the system they've been using, not their capability or them specifically. Email number 3 is proof, a specific case study when someone who holds the same objection they're likely holding right now, same niche, same concern, same starting point, but different outcome because of the system or because of your coaching program or because of your offer, right? You want to make it seem that there's this person that was in their same situation, the same starting point, very, similar characteristics to them in very similar situation, but they were able to achieve a completely different outcome because of your coaching program or because of your offer. Now, email number 4 builds anticipation. One thing they're about to learn that they cannot get anywhere else. You want to have this email in place because this is what makes it feel like they have to attend, right? Because otherwise they'll feel like they can watch your YouTube videos, they can watch your Instagram reels, they can watch other pieces of content elsewhere on other platforms and still learn the concepts that you're going to teach. But when you frame it this way, it makes it seem like, okay, the webinar is like a private event where you're going to go over, topics that you typically don't discuss on your content, maybe because, you want to gatekeep them, or maybe because they're, more complex, more advanced, right? You want to make it seem like it's a special event with special, pieces of content that they can only watch if they come to this webinar. Email number 5 drives urgency, why they cannot afford to miss the live event and why they have to attend on that specific date and time if they want to learn the lessons and want to learn the things that you're going to be discussing in the webinar. By the time they show up to the webinar, they've already had 5 conversion touch points. They're not a cold registrant, they're not a cold lead, showing up just to watch, a presentation. They are a warmed up prospect who has already started shifting towards a buying decision. Now, component number 4 is the show up sequence. This goes exclusively to the people who are already registered. And the job is very simple. To get them physically into the room, 40 hours before, you want to send a social proof email. How many people have registered and why this is worth prioritizing over anything else in their entire day. 24 hours before, you want a story email. Someone who had the same exact problem that the webinar addresses, what they were doing wrong, what shifted, and what changed after they implemented your specific system or your specific offer to solve this problem they've been struggling with for a long time. 1 to 3 hours before, you want to send an email and an SMS together. And what you want to do here is you want to talk about what they need to have ready, what the experience will look like, and what they need to know before coming into the webinar. 15 minutes before, you send another email and another SMS. This one is going to be short. It's just going to be the link and it's going to tell them that it's starting now. And pretty much this is the entire pre-webinar system. It's 4 essential components. Most coaches only have 1 or 2 or sometimes even none. So if you have all 4 of these components, you're going to be able to, make sure that more people show up live, more people register overall. And the people that do show up to your webinar, they're going to be more, bought into your offer, bought into your coaching program because they've already, had these belief shifting sequence. They've already had, the indoctrination video. They're already, a lot more warm by the time they show up on the presentation. So they're going to be way more receptive to your offer. Now let's talk about what the numbers look like when this is built. The industry standard for a show up rate for a webinar is 20 to 40% of registrants. Most coaches accept this as normal, but that is not the ceiling. Coaches with a properly built pre-webinar system run 50 to 70% show up rates consistently. And with 200 registrants, the difference between 25 and 50% show up rate is 50 more live attendees. Those extra 50 live attendees, they've been through the belief shifting sequence. They're not going to arrive cold, so they're going to be a lot easier to convert. And at a 10% closing rate on the live attendees, 25% show up rate gives you 5 sales, but a 50% show up rate gives you 10 sales. It's the same offer, the same presentation, the same traffic, but double the revenue just because more people showed up to the presentation. Coaches who take advantage of the full post-webinar sales window and they have a no-show sequence in place generate 30 to 50% of their total revenue from the webinar in the 72 hours after the live event. Meanwhile, the coaches who are only sending 1 follow-up email capture almost none of it. Same live webinar, same audience, same offer. The difference is entirely in what runs after the webinar. And part 1 is the post-webinar sales window. So the 48 to 72 hours after the live webinar is the highest intent buying window in the entire funnel. Your audience just watched the full presentation, the offer is top of mind. This window needs a hard deadline with a real consequence. For example, these are 1 of 3 things that you can include. The price increases at that specific time once the deadline hits, or you could do a specific bonus stack gets removed permanently at the deadline, or the cart closes and they cannot enroll into the next webinar or the next cycle. 1 of those 3 enforced without exception, not a fake deadline, not a fake price increase that never happens. You want to have a real consequence. Then you run 4 emails in that window. Immediately after the webinar, you want to send the replay email, but not just a link to the recording. You want a full pitch email that leads with the transformation and attaches the replay. 24 hours after, a value email and a case study email. This deepens the belief in the transformation, uses proof from a real student, and reestablishes the offer and the deadline. 48 hours after, you want to send an urgency email. You want to make it direct. You want to talk about what is included and what they'll miss if they don't take action right now. The deadline is real and you're communicating that clearly in this email. 4 hours after the deadline closes, the final push. It's a short email with the offer, the deadline, the link, and nothing else. These 4 emails are doing 4 different jobs across 72 hours, and most coaches only send 1 replay email and nothing else. Part 2 is the no-show sequence. 30 to 60% of your registrants are not going to attend the live webinar. This doesn't mean they're not interested, and this doesn't mean you can't convert them. They opted in for a reason, and that reason still exists. The no-show sequence reactivates that intent. Email number 1 leads with curiosity. You deliver the replay with 3 timestamps called out specifically. You're lowering the barrier to watch by telling them exactly where the valuable parts are. Email number 2 addresses the belief that stopped them from showing up. Usually some version of get to it later, or I'm not sure if this applies to them, and this email reframes that directly. Email number 3 is a case study. Someone with their exact same starting point, but a very different outcome because they followed your system, they followed your coaching program, and you want to really sell them on the idea that people who are exactly, struggling how they're struggling right now, were able to, finally get out of the hole that they're in and improve their situation with your offer, right? You want to position your offer as a solution to these, lists of problems that they have right now. Email number 4 is urgency. The deadline's approaching, and here's everything they're going to lose access to if they don't take action right now. The reason why you want to have this email is because you want to make it seem like, hey, I'm offering you these things for this specific price with all these bonuses, but if you don't take action before the deadline, you're going to miss out and you're not going to be able to buy these things later on. So you really want to push them and give them a reason to buy now and not later. Email number 5 is the final push. Few hours remaining, short, direct, link only, and the deadline for no-shows is identical to the deadline for the live attendees. There's no extension, there's no special treatment, because extending it trains your audience to skip the live webinar, and you don't want to do that. You want to try to, push everyone to attend the webinar live, but if someone doesn't attend and they have to watch the replay and they have to go through the email sequence, that's fine. But ideally, you want to push them onto the webinar because they're going to have, more education, more information. They're going to understand your offer, your coaching program, and what you're about a lot more if they attend the live webinar. But these leads are still worth converting and still pushing them to book a call or to buy the program, right? So this is what you want to do. You want to have the same deadline for the people who attend and the people who don't attend so that all of them can, book a call or buy the program before the deadline. Once the sales window closes, you have a custom audience of the warm leads who considered the offer and didn't buy. You run paid ads back to the specific group on Facebook and Instagram. You are not sending them back to the registration page. The destination is either a VSO that repitches the offer from a different angle or directly to a booking page. The ad angle is also different too. You're not trying to get them to watch the webinar again. You're addressing the specific belief that stopped them from buying when they were watching or attending the live webinar. Most coaches either skip retargeting entirely or they run the same cold traffic ads back to the warm leads they've collected from the webinar. Part 4 is a long-term reactivation sequence. After the retargeting window, you have a group of leads who already know you, they consider your offer and they didn't buy. Most coaches let these leads go cold permanently, but a 30 to 60 day email sequence keeps the relationship alive. Every 2 to 3 weeks, a content email with something useful, and at the end of the sequence, you re-invite them to the next live webinar or to a different entry point inside the funnel. The leads who didn't buy the first time often buy the second or third time, but this is only if you stay in front of them. If you go quiet, they move on and they buy a different offer. Now let's talk about the cost of missing out and not having this system in place. Let me put a number on what gets left on the table when the system isn't built correctly. No indoctrination video means the highest intent moment in the funnel goes completely unused. No belief shifting sequence means your live attendees arrive cold. No pre-selling happened. No objections were handled before the presentation started. And the close rate is going to reflect that directly. You're going to see, because you have no belief shifting sequence, that the people who attend the webinar, they're going to, have a harder time, grasping the concepts and understanding your offer, because they're still going to have these limiting beliefs. They're still going to have, these like misconceptions in their mind. So they're not going to be as receptive and they're not going to, be as excited on the webinar presentation if you don't have a belief shifting sequence in place. Not having a no-show sequence means you're relying on calendar reminders and goodwill. Show up rate stays between 20 to 40% when it could actually be 50 to 70%. Not paying attention to the post-webinar sales window means the 48 to 72 hours of peak buying intent after the live event disappears. Not having a no-show sequence means that 30 to 60% of the registrants never get a single conversion attempt. They opted in, they showed interest, but they weren't given a chance to convert. No retargeting means that the warm leads who watch your entire presentation get served the same cold traffic ads as someone who has never heard of you, or sometimes they get no ads at all. No long-term reactivation means that the leads who didn't buy the first time go cold permanently. And you need to understand that the coach is running all 4 pre-webinar components and all 4 post-webinar components are not just running a better webinar, they are operating on a completely different level. Now let's talk about why most coaches don't build this. Building the system is not glamorous. Writing emails that nobody reads for 3 weeks doesn't feel like building a webinar. Setting up a retargeting infrastructure before the webinar has even run feels like you're getting ahead of yourself. The presentation feels like the product because it's the only visible output. The pre-webinar and post-webinar systems feel like setup because they run in the background. Most coaches build what feels productive, not what actually moves the needle. There's also a knowledge gap. Most coaches have never heard of these components, let alone how to build them. The webinar industry teaches presentation frameworks. Nobody teaches the system around the presentation. So coaches keep rewriting slides because that's the only lever they know about. The coaches who figure out the infrastructure stop thinking about their webinar as a single event. It becomes a machine with inputs and outputs that they can tune and adjust over time. Every time that the webinar runs, it improves the sequences based on the objections that came on the sales calls, and every sales window teaches them which emails converted and which ones didn't. Every retargeting email gets more efficient as the objection data comes in, and the system around it gets sharper every time. And that is the compounding that separates coaches who run webinars and the coaches who actually have a winning webinar strategy. Now, if you're doing more than 30K a month or more and your webinar is not converting the way that it should, the gap is probably in the pre-webinar or the post-webinar system, not the slides, not the pitch structure, the system that you have not built or have not built correctly. This is exactly what we install when we work together. The full pre-webinar and post-webinar system built around your specific offer and your specific audience. The registration page, the indoctrination video, the belief shifting sequence, the show up sequence, the post webinar sales window, the no show sequence, the retargeting, and the long term reactivation sequence. All of that is built for you. The link to book a call with me directly is in the description below. We're going to look at your setup, identify where the gaps are, and tell you what needs to be built. And if it makes sense to work together, we can handle the entire build for you. The link is in the description below to book a call. Now, if you're interested in working with me, make sure to book a call in the description below, because I can only take on a certain amount of coaches every single month, because building out webinar funnels is very time intensive. It requires me to pay a lot of attention to your specific situation, to your offer, to your niche, and to your market. And I have to customize, the pre-webinar system specifically to your offer. The webinar presentation has to be built for you specifically. And the post-webinar system is another, layer that also has to be, tailored specifically to you. So I can only take on a certain amount of coaches, even though I have, virtual assistants, even though I have AI helping me build out all of these things for you. I still can only take a certain amount of coaches every single month. So if you really want to work with me and you want to talk about implementing this specific funnel into your coaching business, make sure that you book a call and we could talk about what this will look like for your offer and what we need in order to start working together. So again, go ahead and book a call and we can talk more.